of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts with praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we shall leave this place. There we go. See that? Whoever didn't come in missed that. Do we have anybody else back there? They need to be here. Okay.
Child abuse and neglect, other types of family violence. Think of things that happen in chaos. I've seen it where kids are defending their mothers from their own fathers, or vice versa. It's unbelievable. All of this is impacting, so I'm going to leave this little system out, because this system takes on a lot of other systems. So this is the family system. And then within this you have culture. But then you do have that big cultural system as well. If you're from another culture, like I came here from Jamaica at age 14, a long time ago. I tell my students that I've never gotten rid of my accent, and it wasn't because I didn't try. I tried. Why do you think I tried? The nail that sticks out gets hammered. Have you ever heard that? I didn't want to be the nail that stuck out, because I was bullied. I'm in study period, they take off my little cap and they're tossing it around, and I'm bullied. So if you come from another culture and then you have to assimilate in another culture, it makes your life even 10 times harder. Then your parents don't understand. The teachers don't understand. Back then, they didn't talk about culture. Back then, it's your race and that's it. Despite the fact that I looked like the other kids, we had nothing in common. I was in Brooklyn, New York. Any New Yorkers? So we had nothing in common. But I had to learn to fit in, and it wasn't easy. So we're talking about cultures, right? And your neighborhood, all of that. And school systems, work, right? School, work, all of that. And here you are being impacted by all these different systems, and you're expected to not have any mental health problems? Come on. That's impossible. That's impossible. So anyone says anything, you can always say, it's not my fault. Right? Look at all these things that I'm being impacted by. And I'm not telling you what's going on with each one. You know what's going on with each one, within your family, within your community, within your job, within your own, now you have created your own family, within your family of procreation.
Can I have
the family of origin and one of procreation.
Can I add something to what you're talking right now? As a pastor, for 35 years, my biggest problem with what you're saying right there has been getting the professionals in church to admit that. Because, some poor little person who doesn't have much, it's okay for them to accept that they have a problem.
Yes.
Okay?
It's part of the mask.
But the educated professional people in church that I see the characteristics of problems. They do not want to admit that they have these mental issues. Well, maybe somebody who comes in off the streets, is very easy for them to admit they have a problem, and they're okay with that. But I, as a pastor, have found where the educated professional in the church have the biggest problem in admitting that they have a problem.
Well, it's hard to admit that. I'm supposed to be a PhD. I'm not supposed to have any problems. It's for the poor people.
Right.
I'll tell you, when I was collecting data for my study on violence among couples, the people in the churches that I went, oh no, you need to go to like Lauderhill or people where you'll find people who have those problems. So we call that denial. They know they're denying, but guess what? They can seek services in places where the poor person can't. So you don't really have to know. Right? You can go see a private psychiatrist. No one has to know. But you have to wear that. But you can't really blame them. Society expects that. Within my own family, people will ask for help, and I will say something that means, what about me? And they're like, well, you're the therapist, so why can't I have a problem? So it becomes difficult for me to say I have a problem because everyone expects me to have the solution. You see what I'm saying? So it's very difficult, and it's part of that denial and wearing that veil because we have to present ourselves in that manner.
But that denial then causes loneliness.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Depression. Loneliness, depression, yes. It's like being, along my journey, I was also an executive director of a major mental health organization in New York. Talk about loneliness. It's like having a higher position. That's lonely. Same thing. You can't let anybody know. So you go to the bathroom and cry. Remember that's where I say you have your privacy. Yeah. So you find other outlets. Yeah. So a lot of times society forces you to deny.
Sometimes those outlets is not the bathroom. Sometimes it could be worse stuff.
Oh, yes. I'm telling you what I did. It can be worse. I talked about just one unhealthy thing, which was substance abuse. There's greater thing than just alcohol. There's suicide. I didn't want to touch on any of that today. Suicide rate in this country is phenomenal. Doctors, medical students, suicide rate among that profession, medical students, very high. Shouldn't they know that they can seek help? But they're going to look weak. So this whole thing of us, men should be strong and the professionals should. Society has placed that burden on us. So it becomes very difficult to say, me too. You can't see my hand.
I know you just talk about the doctors. And I think it's because I was watching something last night with a pastor and who made mistakes. And as a pastor or a church leader, you can't make mistakes. So it puts you back in that lonely spot,
yes.
Of course. And I'm watching this man going through so much. Nobody's going to believe that they don't expect the pastor or the church leader to do those things, so they hide this. They're in that lonely place. They hide it. And I remember watching him thinking there's no way out because he knows that God forgives him. He's right there when he's talking about God forgives him. But he's so afraid of the congregation forgiving him that he ended his life.
But I'll tell you where he doesn't hide it. And that's in the home. And that's when you start looking at the relationship between the couple. His wife will know that he doesn't hide it. That's where you're going to see those signs, the anger, you know, the feeling like I'm a failure, and finding someone to blame. The closest one to that person is the one who's going to get all of that. And then you both leave the house dressed and pretend everything is okay. So it's not hidden in the home. So that's something you also need to address in the church. Intimate partner violence. Because we think it's not here, it's here, and we hide behind scriptures.
I mean, I'll be straight up with you. I think that if I were to make a mistake, I don't think the church would forgive me.
That's not true.
That's just
right.
That's
That's
us
how we
as
feel.
pastors. Is that I would never be. In my mentality, I would never be looked at the same.
Right.
I would never be respected the same. And for instance, I believe that even though people say they do, they don't. But where does that come from? It comes from the people's view of a pastor.
Exactly.
Because of that view, us as pastors, if we're real, if we were to make a mistake, we would leave the ministry completely, because we know we would never be really
But you do make
forgiven.
mistakes, Pastor, so how do you deal with
Yeah.
it? That's the thing.
So right, so then that's the issue. For instance, my profession, that's why we have to deal with that, and I understand other professionals in the way that they deal with their stuff.
And so maybe we can begin by just being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Just reminding each other that, hey, we're all human beings.
Okay.
We're all human beings. Be vulnerable.
As a professional woman in medicine, it gets stressful, very stressful. So there was once, a few years back, I decided I'll go and see a psychologist, a therapist, to see if they could help me to deal with the stress, because burnout is real.
Yes.
So I went, and what she had to say to me, I'm like, you're not telling me anything I don't know. Why am I going to come back for this and pay my money for this? So I never went back, because I didn't feel it was helpful. You know, go home and write out these things that bother you. I don't need you to tell me to do that. I can do that on my own.
Yeah.
So maybe there's the reasons why, professionals don't go and seek out help is because they don't feel they're being helped.
They're pride.
Pride.
Therapy doesn't work overnight. So going once or twice and saying, they're not helping me. When I first graduated in 19... And at that time, I was doing clinical work. We had a lot of kids, and usually they referred from the teachers, conduct disorder problem. And the parents, I would say, I need to meet with you. Oh, no, but Johnny is the problem. And 3 weeks after, it's like, well, Johnny is not behaving in it, so what are you doing? So you expect to drop Johnny off 45 minutes once a week, seen Johnny 3 times, and you expect him to change. And you don't want to be a part of it, because it's Johnny's problem. Johnny is just the one who is showing up the family problem. I want to see you, but you don't want to get involved. The professional goes once, and if you're a physician, it's like, well, I'm an MD anyway. What do they know? They don't know anything. I know more than they do. And you forget that in that office, you're not an MD. You're seeking help. And let's face it, you're not going to pour your heart to someone in the first, second, third. It takes building a relationship. I had a client come in. I told you, every now and again, I see some clients because I like to use it to teach too. So when I'm talking to students, I have new material. Not giving clients names or anything, any indicators of identifiers so that you can identify. But I had this woman, she was 63 years old, referred by her physician who couldn't find anything wrong with her. She walked in and she stood at the door and she said, I don't trust anybody. I said, okay, I don't blame you. Why are you here? my doctor said I should come. What made her say that? Oh, she thinks I'm depressed. What did you tell her that made her, do you see what I'm saying? And I said, I don't blame you for not trusting anybody. Trust should be earned. I don't expect you to walk in here and trust me. You don't know me. But maybe if you're giving me a chance, maybe I'll earn your trust. How is that? She sat down. The fact that she sat down told me, okay, you've hit a button. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you're a professional, it's hard to seek help because you go in there thinking, you're already doing this. Like, what does she know? I told you I'm training therapists. They're going to have their masters in social work. Let's say you're a physician. What does she know? When I graduated, no, I didn't. I was in doing my master's. This was in NYU. I went to NYU in New York. And, you know, you have to do your clinical placements. And in my placement, there was a 14-year-old girl. I was placed in a hospital. That's where I was, my first year placement, running case management. And there was a 14-year-old girl came in pregnant. Actually, she was delivering a baby. And now me, the social work intern, is supposed to call her dad and tell her, congratulations, you're a grandpa. Dad didn't even know she was pregnant. So at that time, I mean, and I looked like, I was early 20s, looked more like the 14-year-old. And then I called Dad. He came in and he said, you are the social worker? You know, you're older than my daughter. What can you tell me? Do you see what can you tell me? I said, maybe we can work on something together. You know your daughter, I know the resources. Why don't we work together and see how we can best help you and your daughter? So validate him. You know, let him know you have a lot of knowledge. You're right, I don't, but I have some knowledge that you need. So therapy takes building relationships. If you go in there the first time expecting a cure, especially if you're already thinking you don't need it, you're going in there with the mindset that they can't do anything for me. Well, I don't need to keep any journal every day, and you know, I don't need to do any of that. If you go in with that mindset. So that's why I say therapy. When you refer someone, I always want to know who referred you. And if someone is pushing them to go, it's not going to work. Until you really feel that you need it, it's not going to work. You fake it to make it. That's what you'll hear. I'm going to fake it to make it. It's like teaching undergrads and grads. I don't teach undergraduates because their parents send them to school. So they are hard to teach. Graduate school, you chose to be there. You see what I'm saying? You choose to go, so it's much easier. It's like therapy. You choose to go, you're going to open your heart. Okay, let me hear what he or she has to say. I really need this. But if you're going because someone else told you you have to go, or you're thinking, you know, I'm better than them, no, it's not going to work. So it's the mindset. Remember what I said about self-talk? What you tell yourself also is really important. So don't go there thinking you're the PhD or the MD, or just go in there thinking, I need help. I need help. Whatever help I can get, I need help. If I go to this one and I don't like their approach, let me try another one. Maybe that one's approach didn't work. I'm seeing a young lady right now. She was seeing a therapist, and she had a lot of issues with race. And she had a white therapist, and she felt the therapist didn't understand me. I said, well, what makes you think because I am black I'm going to understand you? I like to do that because I want to know what the client is saying. Well, I've already we've already had a few sessions, and I know you understand what I'm talking about because of the questions you ask me, because of the approach. I can see that you have an understanding because you can identify with some of what I'm talking about. So does it mean that's going to work? Sometimes it's best not to work with someone from your own, and you can find a good relationship there. You have to really test it to see who am I in sync with? That's therapy. You have to have relationship. So that's why when managed care came about and they're telling you have 3 sessions, you can't even build a relationship in 3 sessions. I'm talking about 45 minutes. Do you think someone is going to spill their guts to you in 45 minutes, 3 weeks? No. And why should they? I wouldn't. I would not. So therapy is personal. But what I can say is the young people are seeking it out. They're telling each other, oh, my therapist says. I know that from my kids. My daughters. My daughter is a physician, too. She says, Mom, all my friends have therapists. I said, they do? And all her friends are lawyers, doctors, business. I said, they have therapists? Yeah, and they're paying good money. I said, oh, I need to come up there and make...
One of the things that I discovered in going to therapy is how much knowledge we all have about ourselves within us.
Yes.
And
Yes.
And I realized that that's what a therapist helped me. Therapists helped me to say in words, to speak my knowledge of myself.
Yes.
And there was a lot of help in just speaking my knowledge of myself out and not having somebody shoot me for it.
Yes. Because the therapist allows you to get to those aha moments. Oh, wow. I never thought about that.
So, and the issue is where sometimes people may go to a therapist in the same way that they go to a doctor, where the doctor is going to give them a pill for the solution, and a therapist doesn't work that way.
Right.
A therapist is going to help you with what you have inside, and they're to develop that. They're not there for, the therapist doesn't create a cure for you. He doesn't give you a prescription.
Right.
There, a therapist will help you know about yourself and will help you heal yourself with your own knowledge.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what I've learned in therapy.
Exactly.
And the problem is that if you go to a therapist, you know, and you say, this guy is going to tell me something I didn't know, he's going to tell me something out of this world, and I'm going to come out of here now, I'm going to become a new person. I think that is the issue, and which is completely different than what a doctor does when he gives you a pill. Here you go, here's your prescription, go and you're going to feel better. And a therapist is completely different. I mean, I don't know if I'm...
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. And I'm just thinking, oh, yes?
Dr. Victoria, thank you for all your info so far. Pastor, the word you wanted is unpack. That's a contemporary term. The therapist helps you to unpack yourself.
Right.
There you go.
To vocalize and realize your experiences so you can actualize them. So, Dr. Victoria, what I hear you say is we need to be humble if we go for therapy.
Yes.
And I wanted to tie that into to what the Lord tells us. He
Yes.
dwells with a humble and contrite spirit.
There you go.
If you want to know the truth about yourself, and God is the truth, the source we should be getting it from as Christians is from our Master. And our Master has told us you need to humble. If you are humble and contrite, I will dwell with you. So you will be told about yourself once you're a humble and contrite person serving your God.
It's not easy. So sometimes we need help. Go ahead, Gina.
Go ahead, Gina.
One of the things I would like to mention is the fact that illness also contributes to this situation.
Yes.
Because, I used to be a very active man, right? And then I got ill. And it's one illness compounded by another one. So all of a sudden, I am here. And what I am having a problem with is the fact that my wife has to deal with me, right? And that could be very, I don't want to say annoying, but that could be very frustrating at times, right? Because I find myself, and what I have to do is when I find myself making unreasonable demands, I have to back up and say, wait a second, I can't do this, right? So I have to be doing self-talk all the time,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm talking to myself, because I'm realizing that I'm making unreasonable demands,
Wow.
right? But that comes from the fact that I feel as though I'm in no longer position to really just do stuff myself, right? So I need to ask for help. And from my background, I'm a Trinidadian, all right? From my background, you don't ask for help.
Right.
You go out there and you do what you have to do. And I've always lived my life like that, but all of a sudden,
You can no longer do it.
I can no longer do it. And that could be very frustrating.
Yeah. But you know what? What you're telling us, if you say that to her, she'll really want to do it.
So I'm afraid of that.
No. I mean, that's empathy I'm hearing. I'm hearing a lot of empathy. Wow. I know I'm being unreasonable. I am sorry, but I really need help. I think you should say some of that to her. Honestly. She'll do even more.
Could I see the doctor said?
Always.
First, I want to say thank you so much, Doctor, for taking your time to bless us this morning and even this time. I think we all in therapy right now, I must say, for those of us that I said, did you feel like you're in therapy, like you're speaking your mind?
Therapy.
So what I've realized, even from this morning when you're speaking and even now, I think I told my husband a little while back, in regard to our children, there is something that I regret now that my kids are much older. I have 26, 24, and 19. When, first of all, as a Caribbean woman as well, I came in the country at 14, so I was already built and made up, and everything in me is all Haitian.
Right.
So there are certain things you don't believe in. It's like get up and get it done. And I think because of that kind of backbones, I didn't have my father also, but I noticed that it didn't impact me so much, and I always accredited to my parents on how they did it, and never heard anything bad about my father, so it didn't create any perception like evil intent toward my father, nothing. And I became an adult and gave everything space. I can't tell on the surface. I'm sure there's somewhere, any broken mirror, if you put it back together, you're still gonna see the broken part of it. So I'm sure there's some type of it in me. But one thing that I noticed when, because of how things were done for me, I feel like I have it together more than some people who probably had it worse than me. It created something when I started raising my children by myself. What I regretted was and I think it's the suggestion I probably would make to anyone who have young children who are in the position that I was in as a single mom, is to really get our children in therapy. Don't wait until they have a problem, because the broken glass, the broken vessel needs to go in reconstruction. And I think if I had done that, some of the traits and things that I see in my boys now, I may not see it in my relationship with them during the time I was raising them. I saw a lot of those things as, that's what kids do, which are true. Some of it is. Now that they're in relationship, I can see the trace of certain things being manifested. I see some of them, it's like, I don't want to make the mistake my father made. I don't want to be my kid. They have children. I don't want my kid to be raised by a single parent. So whether the relationship is very bad for them, they'll stay in it just for that. So it affects each person differently. So I'm wondering to myself how much difference it would have made if I grew up with an understanding when I became a single parent, when I saw a certain little sign, or just prepare them for a better future than to let it just take its course. Because I feel like when you wait for something to take its course, you're taking a higher chance of it not turning out right. And then the other thing is, as a single parent, you start to think of yourself, you over compensate, and you try so hard. Even you yourself now, you come out with your own issues, your confidence and everything. And no matter how much somebody's telling you, no, kids are kids, they would do that. In the back of your mind, you feel like you have so much to do with it. Is it the decision that I've made? So you have your ups and downs.
Hold on. If someone came to you with all these problems, you would be compassionate towards them.
Well, that's what I learned when we started doing things with our kids, which is why I told my husband this. When we started having children, we had a program at the previous church where the pastor funded, and we had over 35 kids. We were feeding after church and everything. And we gave them a platform, and we heard those kids talking about they were raped. Some of them went through different things, and I remember going to bed crying. And then one day I told him, I said, how many times have I had compassion over my children, understanding that they too have issues like that. They have things that have affected them, that I even care to listen to them and not dismiss it as, you just spoil, you have so much, I've done so much for you, I've done X, Y, and Z. So compassion was there.
Compassion for you. I want you to have some compassion for yourself.
Amen. Yeah.
You did the best you could. The fact that you're asking these questions means that you already have the answers. Have some self-compassion. You'd be compassionate to your neighbor. You can't be perfect. And let's face it, in a lot of our cultures, you can't air your dirty laundry, right?
No.
We're not taught to air our dirty laundry. So you're not taught to share and to expose what's going on within the family. I showed you the cultural system. That's the culture. That's deep. You're not taught to air your dirty laundry. And when you do, who knows what's going to happen?
Feel worse before you
Right. So have some self-compassion. It's okay to say to the kids, wow, I'm realizing that I wish I had known this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I wish I had known this. And let them, it's okay. You're a human being.
I want to go back to the idea of going to a therapist. And Vernon brought something to mind when he talked about the word unpack. So when you go to a therapist, think of it this way. When you walk into that office, that therapist knows nothing about you. So how can you expect a solution from that therapist when that therapist knows nothing about you? So the first 4 or 5 sessions are going to be methods that the therapist uses to know about you.
Exactly.
So that that therapist can help you. So imagine yourself, as Vernon helped me to see this, imagine yourself coming into the therapist and you have a chain on your leg but that chain is tied to a suitcase. Now, you don't know about the suitcase because you've been dragging it around so long, you think it's part of you. Okay? And you drag in that suitcase. You know a little bit about what's in that suitcase, but not everything because you haven't opened it in such a long time. Now, the therapist knows nothing about what's in that suitcase. Right, but she knows it's there. That's why you're there. Okay. Now, that therapist, remember, his first sessions are just to get you to try to open that suitcase because he or she doesn't know what's in that suitcase. Only you know a little bit because you haven't opened it in 10 years. So the therapist is going to spend the first few sessions, which you may think are a waste of time. He or she doesn't know anything about you. So when he asks you to do this or do this or do that, it's because he's trying to learn about you to try to help you. So you have to open up that suitcase. And then you start pulling out that dirty laundry. Now, after 4 or 5 sessions, that therapist begins to think of strategies to help you to overcome that. But you can't ask them to give you a solution or to help you when they know nothing about you. So I wanted to come back to that because I want you to know what to expect so that you can be patient. Because the most stupid request that you may think is stupid from a request is the therapist is trying to learn about you. He's not trying to give you a solution right now. They're trying to learn about you because they don't know you.
Oh, thanks for that. And just to add to what you said earlier about being humble and going to God, God knows everything about you. So you don't even have to tell him. He knows, but it doesn't negate the fact that he has put other people here on earth to help you as well.
Since we're on the topic of single moms, as Gina was speaking, and I was almost screaming it at you from over here. I was like, have compassion on yourself. It's what I have to tell myself all the time because I'm really, really hard on myself. And any little thing that I see, if he loses his temper or if he whatever, I'm like, did I raise my voice yesterday? Did he learn that from me? Did he watch a show where they were speaking back to their parents? Like, did he? And then I have to go like, it's okay, Carrie, he's 2. He's learning how to speak. Like, it's okay, he's 2. And I, too, want to put him in therapy because I just think that it's needed, period. Whether you realize you have a big issue or not, I just think that we all need a safe space where you can go and speak. And if you don't want to come and speak to mommy, at least I know you have a therapist who, if you say something crazy, they'll let me know.
And you know, you have kids, if they don't want to go to mom or dad, maybe there's an aunt or an uncle that they like, a cousin, somebody. They just need to have an outlet. Yeah. So encourage that.
So in our group therapy session, I'm saying this for any other single moms that are watching that are basically, beating themselves up or whatever the case may be. It is ridiculously tough. I saw my mom do it for quite a few years before my stepdad came in the picture, and I pray that I have the same experience from mine, that he gets that figure to look up to. But I don't even know what I wanted to say on the mic. I just wanted to say that it's tough. And I have to constantly remind myself to love myself. I have to constantly remind myself to breathe. That is my biggest thing.
Yes.
Just take a breath, just breathe. I just told Gina I opened up my gift from the Women's Day. And last night after the baby went to bed, even though I was exhausted, I did like a face mask and I put on the little gold things under my eyes. I don't know what they're supposed to do, but maybe they'll help. I don't know. And I just laid on my back for like 30 minutes in his room because he's taken over my bed. And
but you know what?
And just took a minute.
Yeah, you're ahead of the game. I like that because we were raised to think that when we do that, we're being selfish.
And I'm learning that it's okay to take a moment for me and to treat me, and that every time I do something for me, I don't have to do something for the kid.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say that out loud for any other moms that are just like, I have to, I have to, I have to, I have to. We're doing the best that we can, period.
Yes. And if you're not healthy, you can't take care of anybody. That's why when you go on the airplane, they tell you, have you thought about that? But even if you have a child, buckle your seatbelt first. I remember the first time I heard that years ago. I had my little daughter with me. I'm like, what's she talking? I have to buckle my daughter. Then I thought about, because if something happens to me, who's going to take care of her? Yes. Yeah. So that's the same thing. And I'm glad because you're taking care of you doesn't mean you're not taking care of him. It's the opposite. Yes.
Doctor, I have a quick question. As you were speaking earlier with Sagithia, I saw a real parallel with the gospel. Like when you're trying to share the message with someone, no one's going to embrace it because they don't feel they need it. They come in and they're like, I'm not getting anything from this, right? And you're ready to leave real abruptly. So how do you bring a person to recognize their need? Because you said that if somebody's coming to you because they're forced, they're not going to get anything out of it. How do you bring a person to recognize their need for something?
It's your approach. Your approach. When you, for example, speaking of the gospel, when you're preaching to someone who says, I don't believe, and you're still preaching, you're doing the same thing and you're realizing you're not getting any new result, you need to think about, what's my approach? What am I doing that he or she's not hearing me? So maybe you ought to start listening to them. What are they saying? Exactly. You're not asking the right questions. You're pushing. You're shoving. No one wants that. Being married for how many years, you get to know to let your husband think he's the one making certain decisions, you're really making it. Now I'm giving away secrets, Pastor. And his spouse, right? Oh yeah, wouldn't that look nice? Yeah. And then next thing you hear him saying, oh, I bought because I said, yeah, that was a nice idea. Thank you. That's it.
And the thing is, that works both ways.
Exactly. And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Talking of relationships, because we have them, and marriages, I heard a lot about marriages. And one of the things, I see a couple of couples, right now it's about two, really couple of couples. And relationships, it's really how you talk to each other. How do you talk to each other? And wanting to give 50% because you're watching to see if he or she is going to do. I'm here to tell you, give 100%. Don't say, but no. When your partner sees that you are giving 100%, he or she's going to buckle up. So, don't watch and come up with a formula. Oh, I do this, but I know. Just do it. And if you still think it's not, then talk to your therapist. but do not stop. I've seen women, okay, I'm not cooking dinner because he made me this. That's not good. You still have to eat. Why are you going to punish? If that's how you're going to punish, that's not going to work. Find a time to talk. If it's too heated in the moment, schedule it. Schedule a time to talk. Speak to each other with respect, the way you want to be spoken to. I hear these young couples nowadays, Pastor, the way they talk to each other, every other word is a curse word. And it's normal. I said, that's not respect. Oh, but that's how we talk. I said,
they learned it somewhere.
They learned it somewhere. I said, well, you can create your own trajectory. You can leave that. Start your own thing. If you want that person to respect you, then you need to show respect for yourself. And let that person know where to draw the line. There's a boundary. I will not tolerate this, period. No matter how much you love. I will not tolerate this. Over time, that person will know. Okay, I need to respect that and not draw the line. And just know how you talk to each other. Don't put each other down. In a marriage or a relationship, there is no winner if one of you win the argument. You have to win it together, meaning compromise. So when you think you won, trust me, there's something seething underneath that's going to come back to bite you. No. Compromise. There is no winner. Remember that. When your point is the only one that's accepted, it's going to come back to haunt you.
I just wanted to share a couple lines of thought. It's funny, on the way here this morning, the thought came to me about... Now? Yeah, okay. So on the way here this morning, the thought came to me. The word says we are born into sin and shaped into iniquity.
Wow.
Right? And I don't know why I had that thought, but what it says to me is that we're not even given a chance, right? We're not even given a chance that we're already born into perfection. We're already born into sin.
You're right.
And so the counterintuitive thought to that is, but now as adults, we're trying to perform in a state of perfection.
Yes.
Right? The cultural aspect of all of this is real. So I'll tell you guys, like, I'm Guyanese. My mother has been here. We've been here for about 35 years. Mm-hmm. So I was 8 when I came. Mm-hmm. But if you talk, if you encounter my parents, you meet my parents, it's as if they just left Guyana yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? So they've held on culturally, or they just kind of stopped at some point. But it's interesting, as my sisters and I have aged and we've gotten older, we naturally want to know, right? But I find that when we ask my father questions or my mother questions, they think we're prying.
Yes.
And they get defensive and they don't want to tell you. Like, it's as if they're exposing the family,
yes.
Right? So for me, I find myself, I'm here, but I'm looking ahead here to my son, so I'm caught in the middle. So I will tell you guys that thing where the Bible says, bind up and break every generational curses. I'm in the middle, and I promise you I'm in the fight of my life because I refuse to pass those things on down to my son. So I find myself telling my son, listen, even if you don't want to talk to me, please find someone else to talk to. Therapy is normal. A friend of mine says, if your body aches or something's wrong with you, the car's wrong or something, you're going to go get help for it. You're going to go. So I'm glad in a regard that COVID has kind of brought out the awareness of mental health, because I think it's something that needs to be normalized, right? It doesn't make you a crazy person. It doesn't make you a weak person. It takes courage to be vulnerable, and I think that's the hardest part.
Exactly.
But if we can get past that, like, our young generation's getting help, and good for them, right?
Yeah. So getting past that begins with us. What you're doing with your son by saying, this is what it's okay to go there, you're already doing it. You're setting that stage. So by the time he has his kids, that's what he knows. My mom said this. My dad said this. So we're going to change that. But culture is a heck of a thing. So your parents are Guyanese, and they're still Guyanese. You may be Guyanese American. That's different. Do you see what I'm saying? You are Guyanese American. Your parents are still Guyanese living in America. That acculturation process never really got beyond a certain point. But for you, it did.
One of the things that I've mentioned two things. One of the things that has helped me in my life that I've come to accept. I've come to accept that I am not a perfect husband. Really? I've come to accept that I am not a perfect father. I've come to accept that I'm not a perfect pastor. I've come to accept, and I've, not that I don't want to get better, but I've come to accept that I'm okay with that. And I've told my parents, I'm not a perfect father to you. I've made mistakes as a father, but you're just going to have to take it. That's just the way it is. Yeah, this is me. Yeah. And this is, I haven't been a perfect father. Haven't been a perfect husband.
What's a perfect father?
You're right. We don't even know what perfection is. We don't even know what it looks like. That's why when Adventists talk about perfection, I ask them, can you please explain perfection to me? We don't even know what it is. We've never seen it. So the thing is, I know that I'm not, and I'm perfectly okay with that. The other thing I wanted to this whole idea that you guys just brought up, talking about American, and that's always been a big issue for me, and it's been because I came when I was 8 years old from Cuba. My parents came here, and where I think that a lot of family therapy is needed, and I emphasize family therapy, is to our immigrant parents and children brought up here. And there's a bigger difference with the Hispanic families. Here's why: because of the language.
Yes.
You will find that at 12, 14 years old, the children are leading the parents. They're reading letters to their parents. They're interpreting to their parents. They become the go-to from the parents for everything. Hey, listen, I just got this letter. Could you translate it for me? My parents would get letters from the school, and I would be like, it says that Juan Labrador is one of the best kids in school. We congratulate you, parents, for bringing him up so perfect, And but the thing is, my father, he needed to go to the doctor, Juanito, Macho, I want you to go with me. I want you to go with me. I would translate for my father. My father needed to buy a car. I would translate for him. And so the roles get switched.
Reversed,
and I've always been about that. And in fact, I used to give a seminar when I was at chaplain at Greater Miami Academy, mostly to the Haitian churches. I would go to the Haitian churches and I would talk to them about that, because I had the Haitian students in the school, and then I had the parents. And there was and the thing is that I realized that in that area, there is a lot of family therapy that must be done, because if not, by the age of 12 and 14, there's a large disconnection, and the kids grow up without parents.
When I first graduated with my master's, we're talking way back then, that's what was happening, because we didn't have licensed, a lot of Spanish-speaking therapists. So here the kids are being referred with conduct problems, and the kids are the ones telling the parents what we're saying. And I'm saying, something is wrong. Yeah, that's what was happening. Language barrier. The parents don't know. So you're talking to the parents, and the child is saying, oh, Mom, this is what they said. Yeah. I don't know if they're telling
He just said that I'm right.
Yes, that's it. So you are perfectly right. But thank God now we have a lot of trained.
But a lot of times these old-time parents that come from the islands don't feel I'm not going to no therapist. I'm not going to go.
They're not going anywhere.
They're not going to.
They're not going to any stranger to tell them their business. No way. Okay.
So, Doctor,
we're going to wrap this up. What time is it?
My kids are all grown, but that's where the problem is. So my initial question to you, which what I was asking was for more, because even today I have a friend who just texted me while I was here, because they couldn't really see it. They had some issue. They couldn't watch the whole thing, having issues with their kids, and that's when it came to my mind, and I'm like, you know what? My kids can relate to that. Do you think it's a better idea when, let's say, a person is going through some type of separation, divorce, or anything of that sort, to not take for granted that it's a better idea to start the kids on therapy, to kind of have someone to talk to about the situation that's happening at home, because we know mom and dad aren't the best people you want to speak to because they're going through their own thing. Do you suggest that we start those type of therapy beforehand? Because that's what I was saying. I'm like, you know what? My kids are in their 20s now. their behavior, I see them in a different light, seeing them in relationship now. I can see the difference, them being in relationship. If they were able to get therapy prior, when a separation or a divorce, is it better? Do you recommend that?
So, and what I'm going to say to you is, remember I said the way you parent teenagers is not the same way you parent little kids. I'm going to talk to the kids. You know, Dad and I are going through a rough time right now, and it's really concerning me about how it's going to affect you. I would like to, I want to offer you this. And is that okay? What do you think? Let them be a part of that decision, because if not, they're going to go there and like, what Mom brought me here. I had a kid once come in. I'm not talking to you. Dad thinks I need to come. Okay, so I said to him, okay, this was a while ago. Well, we have an hour together, so what are we going to do? She said, I don't care. It was a young boy. I don't care. I'm just going to sit here. I said, okay, I'm going to do my notes. You want to help me? I said, you're going to do your notes? My dad's paying you. I said, but this is your time, but you can decide how we use it. So if you're going to sit there, I don't want to waste it. I'm going to do my notes. So I pretended I'm doing notes, and he's getting angry. Like, this is ridiculous. My dad is paying. I said, but you have chosen not to use the time to discuss why you're here. Well, I don't need to be here. He thinks I need to be here because of. Right? Exactly. I said, oh, he thinks because. But did you talk to him about, whether this was a good idea for you? Yeah, but he doesn't want to listen. I said, oh, that kind of sucks. He doesn't want to listen. You got to talk their language. You can't tell two grown up. No, he doesn't want to listen. Whatever happened next, I said, why don't you sit in my chair? Sit in my chair. I'm going to sit in your chair. Tell me what you would do. How would you handle this? So he started questioning me as the therapist. So then I know exactly what is going on with him based on those questions. You see so you have to be strategic with kids, but you want them to be a part of the process. Don't make all the decisions for them if they're teenagers, because they're going to come and they're not going to think there's anything. It's mom. They're the ones getting a divorce, not me. That's what they're going to say. But if you open it and say, I am really concerned about you. Remember you talked about, I'm talking about approaches here. So it's how do you approach? You can say, I'm going, and I think it would be good if you go. Whatever. But it's the approach. Don't force them. Offer it. Let them know it's still an option. Well, now I don't want it. Why don't you think about it? It's the offer is, think about it and let me know. Or maybe we can go together the first time. You can check it out, see how it is. But have them be a part of the decision. Don't make all the decisions for them, because they're big. What time is it?
So I just wanted to bring up an experience that I had with the last therapist that I went to. I went to her because she specialized in PTSD. And, the first day she gave me the test to see how I, range. And apparently it was like way up there. Mm-hmm. And I think I may have done maybe 3 or 4 sessions with her. Mm-hmm. And she would always try to have me visualize, close my eyes and visualize this, that, and the other. But I could never visualize anything. And I started to feel like I may need to start making up stuff to feel like, I'm making some progress. But I really wasn't seeing what she was trying to communicate to me. And every response I would give her, which was my actual response to closing my eyes and trying to visualize, she came to the conclusion that she couldn't help me. She said that I think based on what you've told me and the responses that you've been giving me, you may be better off with a Christian therapist. And she gave me some recommendations. But what I found, and I never end up going to any of them because they're not on insurance, neither was she, but it's so expensive. You can't go, once a week, twice a week for therapy when they're charging you $150 an hour or whatever the cost is. And I always wondered why, one, it's so hard to find a Christian therapist, because you don't want people giving you all this hocus pocus stuff and then you go home and then you're like, drowning in your childhood traumas, and then you're just laying up in a place just stressing out, So I just wanted somebody to just, from a biblical perspective as well as a clinical perspective, help me to get through the stuff that is causing the trauma that I have.
So it's not a bad thing for a therapist to say, I think I'm not the best fit for you. I think you should appreciate that she doesn't continue to take your money knowing she's not the best fit. What you needed to do was take that next step. You said she gave you a list, but you didn't go.
Well, I think I didn't go because they weren't on insurance and they were expensive.
Right. So, and that's part of the problem. When I talk about systems, we really need to address the macro system level, because the access to mental health services is just very limited.
Can I throw? I like to throw in here something most of my board and people here have always known that is my dream. My dream has always been to have the church to have a counseling center that we can get grants for, but of course we need somebody that can overlook this.
Definitely.
Right. we need because
I think you do, Pastor.
because I can find the volunteers who will volunteer hours that they need, but these volunteers need somebody over, that can do that. And my issue has been finding that one person who can who can overlook that, because here's the problem that I found. I do a lot of free pastoral counseling. I'm not a professional like you. I do it for free here with people from the community. I have people from the community come. And the thing is, I see so many marriages that could be saved, but so many marriages can't go because they can't afford it to go. And there are some people who don't get help because they can't afford to get it. And I've always thought, I said, it'd be great for us as a church to have a counseling center where we can actually apply for a grant. And we do have grant writers back there that can help us out with that.
That's a great idea.
But the thing is that there's always my main problem has always been to have that one person to overlook the program.
You can check with the foundation or whoever is giving, if it's a government.
That's not the answer I was looking for.
But they might tell you. But the thing is, a clinical person.
Yeah. But anyway, that's been and Fern, you touched on a subject that's always been my heart. It's always been one of the things I've always wanted to have in our church is to provide a counseling center, because there are a lot of counselors out there that will come and give you 2 hours a week.
Yes.
And you can have 20 counselors that if they each give you 2 hours a week, that's 40 hours a week that you have of counseling that you can provide. And even
you can have interns.
And you can have, that's right. That's where I'm going. But the interns need somebody to be there. So the thing is, that is, believe me, we've looked a lot into it, and right before the pandemic started, we were just about ready to start a program. And we were ready to start with the 12-step. We're gonna start with little things like that so that we can show a record that what we're doing to be able to get a grant.
Exactly.
To be able
You've got it down.
To be able to do that, and that's always been part of what I wanted to provide as a church to the community, not just to the church, but to the community, because there's a lot of people just can't afford it.
That's an excellent idea, and I wish every church would have that type of service, because it's needed. And then you can sort of control who is hired. We talk about Christian therapists and just the approaches that you want used. It's a great idea.
But anyway, I think our time has gone. We're ended, and there are some places that a place that I recommend to go to is called, if anyone needs, it's called Spanish River Counseling Center. It's on Andrews and Yamato, okay, St. Andrews and Yamato. And it's a big Episcopalian church that's there, and they have a counseling place, but it's professional. It's nothing. You do have to have insurance and those kinds of things. But I want you to know, we as a church, we have paid for people who have needed to go, and we have provided financial help as a church for people who've needed to attend. And I don't think anyone should not attend. If you're in this church, you should not attend because you don't have money to go. Right. We will help you with that.
If you do that with specific agencies, you should negotiate a rate for the church.
So we can do that. I think you had another place.
Yes, there's a place that's on. I forgot the paper where I have that in. So I have taken people for him to that Spanish River place. As a matter of fact, the doctor there I know very well too. I just found out he's the PhD over the whole center. Right. Which I put a call to him. I'm working out to see if when we refer someone, if they will work out like a discount, like an affiliated source for us. And the other place, because I know most of our people from the church live in West Palm also, so I know you're probably already thinking, what, that far? So I placed a call, and I'm waiting on the manager of the center to call me so we can work out some things. And I don't want to give any information until I have everything concrete as far as the pricing. But they do guarantee me that they have Christian counselors also.
Great.
So, but let me tell you, when it comes to counseling, people don't mind far. Some people like far.
Yeah. No one will know them.
Some people. Some people like far. Some, a lot of people don't want to drive down the street, and the counselor is right down the street. They don't want to run into them at Publix. They don't want to run into them. So when it talks about
the counselor doesn't really want to run into them either.
Right, the counselor.
Because then you don't want to say hi.
Yeah. So So when it comes to counseling and therapy, a lot of people don't mind far.
Yeah. So we're working on a second option as well for closer. So we'll bring that, and once we have everything in place, we'll let you know. But right now we are using the Spanish River, so that's also an option for now.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for being here with us, and we can shut it down, you guys online. Thank you for joining us, and we hope this has been helpful.